Hey y'all, it is season 2 of the BlaQberry View. How y'all doing? Season 2, episode 1. We want to thank y'all for sticking with us on this journey. As you can see, we're in an intimate setting because we have some special guests, some beautiful black women, as you all can see right here. Yes, right. Also, really quickly, if you haven't subscribed to iElevate Plus TV, do that. $4.99. You pay more on Pornhub and OnlyFans than that, okay? Because I know I do. I have about like 5 that I subscribe to. Yeah, shh, girl, be quiet. But let's go ahead and get started because we have lots to talk about. So we're gonna do some intros so y'all can meet our guests for today. And then we're gonna pass it over to Harold, who is going to give us all of the many shady things, all the information that we've been wanting to hear on today. Yes? All right, so as y'all know, I'm Adrian. Yeah? Who are you?
Oh, and I'm Quentin Cole. Yeah.
I'm Christopher Xavier Bernard Walker. So great to see you.
Absolutely.
It's your boy, Dr. Z.
It's your boy, Harold.
We not get my intro.
Go ahead, girl.
I'm Santa Morris.
She said that.
Come on now.
And I'm Misha Frazier.
Yes, welcome ladies. So y'all, if y'all remember episode 8 of season 1, we had 5 black men, hetero cis black men. And as you can see, as we promised for season 2, episode 1, we have some amazing black women. Now we don't have 5, but we have 2 that embody the power of so many. Yes, essence. So Harold, what do you have for us today?
Squeeze that.
Come on, it's my favorite segment because it's my own. And that is the Daily Squeeze. And so today's Daily Squeeze actually, I'm going to be focusing on some news that recently hit the interwebs. So as you probably have seen, former NFL player Zach Stacy went viral after recordings popped up on social media shared by his ex-girlfriend. And he was abusing her physically. If you've seen the video, I'm sorry, let me pause for a second. Trigger warning. This is about domestic violence. So if that's something that triggers you, you may want to fast forward a couple minutes. But as I was saying, he went viral. The situation as a whole went viral because video surfaced. And if you've seen the video, I'm not going to show it, but like it is very graphic. He tosses his ex-girlfriend into a TV screen against the wall on the ground. And also to add fuel to the fire, he does this in front of their 5-month-old son. So, to my understanding, to my knowledge, his ex-girlfriend is a white woman, but this got me thinking about just holistically domestic violence in general, which you may not know, but 1 in 3 women and 1 in 10 men actually experience domestic violence within the U.S. every year. And so what that is specifically, as we look at that from the lens of black women, it actually comes down that more than 40% of black women are actually going to experience domestic violence in their lifetime. And that's compared to the 31.2% of individuals, of women in general, that experience violence, domestic violence. So I wanted to put it to you all, with all this going on and the unfortunate situation that this young lady is found in. He was captured. He left the scene. She called law enforcement. He left the scene, but then he is now detained. He's facing 2 felonies, aggravated assault, and I forgot the other one. But basically, if convicted, he's going to be facing 15 years in prison. So that's some type of, So hopefully that plays out how we were all probably think it needs to play out. But for you all, do y'all think that domestic violence has gotten better in terms of addressing the issue in the black community, or do you think that's something that we still have yet to reconcile with?
We'll open up to our guests to answer that first. Go ahead, girls. ladies.
I can start. I struggle with that because of this like glorifying of toxic relationships that kind of exist in society, especially within the Black community. Like there are people who will say like, oh, well, me and my dude, we fight all the time. I'll punch him in his jaw if he do this and all this kind of stuff. And we don't think about the reverse as well occurring. And so a lot of times we glorify it and it's like, that's just what we do in relationships. So that's how we fight. That's how we show our passion. We get excited. We get deeply hurt and things like that. But then we don't really look at the long-term impact of how that truly is not showing a healthy relationship. It's not admitting one. It's not teaching your 5-month-old baby what love and relationships are supposed to look like. So then we just continue to regurgitate these negative relationships through generations and generations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. I often remember hearing folks say like, oh, well, you know, my grandparents, they did it, so that's the norm. Like, you know, because we have grandparents like in the world, in the Black community who have stayed together and they've dealt with physical abuse. And so we just think that that is supposed to happen, right? Like that's just the thing.
I think there's two parts to it for me. When I think about it, I think about how social media plays a huge part in communicating and elevating a lot of issues. So I do feel like the numbers may not reflect it, but I think information is being poured out into people, and more people are even talking about mental abuse, and I think that's a huge part that's always left out. People, when they hear domestic violence, they always think about physical, you know, and I think now we're shedding light on mental abuse. I am someone who has survived like mental and verbal abuse, and it's a mind fuck, you know, because sometimes you are caught up in it, you're caught in the middle of it before you can even realize what's happening. And by that point, you can't tell if you're going or coming. And people around you, if they're not knowledgeable about it, they will encourage it or encourage you to stay or encourage you to work it out or communication, all this other stuff. But like the whole time it's bullshit.
And wouldn't that have more of an impact than the physical anyway? Because mental and verbal, I feel for me would have a.
No, I hear that. I don't know if I would say more, but I definitely think it's just as damaging.
It's just as damaging.
Yeah. It's just as damaging as the physical, you know, bruises or things that you have to get cared for from a hospital or a physician.
True.
And I think I would like to see mental abuse more highlighted, and I would like to see the ramifications of that abuse highlighted as much as
and
physical.
like now, on like the grants funding side and like the programmatic side, so they're changing what the confines of violence looks like for relationships, no longer calling it like domestic violence, because domestic violence has a connotation that attributes to physical abuse, and it fails to unveil mental abuse, financial abuse, social abuse. So now they're shifting the term to interpersonal violence. So it's gonna be more shifted towards IPV to encompass all forms of violence, even outside of domesticated situations. Because I feel like a lot of times when we put violence within the confines of one thing, it's okay over here, but it's not okay over here. It needs to stop, period, right? And like we need to think beyond so much more the physical, because as you said, there's a lot, especially when you're getting to know people that can be trauma inducing, that can bring up past traumas that people can use to try to ensue some type of power over you outside of the physical attributes, right?
To your point, Chris, I mean, a lot of the points that y'all made, I just jotted just some quick notes down, because when we talk about that toxicity on social media and that power, there's this mindset that you can own somebody. That's my man. That's my husband. That's mine. You know, and I will, full disclosure, I have said that, you know, at times, and then I also realized though, you can't own another human being. Toni Morrison said it best. You cannot own another human being, and you cannot lose what you do not own. And so when someone thinks that someone is their property, that is glorified on social media, and it's like, well, my husband wouldn't do it. My husband, baby, it's people that have been together for 40 years, and somebody wake up one day and decide, I don't want to do this anymore. Never mind, I'm good. And so I think that then triggers something, to Chris's point, where that IPV perspective comes in on, I'm going to mind fuck you, I'm going to financially fuck you. So I just wanted to add that. Go ahead.
With that mindset, I think I have had the privilege of being formally educated, being surrounded by highly educated people, whether it was post-secondary education or just within life. And I'm one of those people that I learn from other people. I try not to make my own mistakes if I can help it. I try to learn from other people. And through reading and experiencing other people's relationships or friendships and all those different things, and even my parents' own violent relationship, I've come to the mindset of I would rather have somebody experience me and I would rather experience them rather than ownership. Will I still say somebody's my man? Probably, because like it's toxic. And like I'm into it.
I'm still working on it myself.
I'm still working on that. But when I say it, it's not in the literal sense. And at least I know that. At least I know that. But I would rather have somebody experience me and I would rather experience them. And that goes into the full relationship of like, I may have things that I don't like that you do, but I'm going to communicate them to you. And that's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, what you do when we run. But it's up to you to decide how you want to move forward. And I want the same respect given to me.
Do you think that abuse is solely a learned behavior?
I think it can be either. I think it can be learned or groomed. I think again it's just based off of the circumstance. I think I would not assume that every person who is a actor of violence on another person is a person who learned that by virtue. And we hear the stories a lot where it's like, oh, I grew up in an abusive household, and so you just you took on what you saw. But there are people who were not this, right? But maybe lost a job, maybe got really sick and had to deal, and people find different ways to cope. And unfortunately, sometimes coping also looks like harming other people, because you're in pain, so you want to inflict pain on others. And so I think it is definitely, it can be learned and grown. One thing I do want to offer into the conversation also is from an intersectional point, which is why I think violence for Black women is so high as it is, right? When you add the fact domestic violence from that lens, particularly as it relates to Black women, you got to add the fact that they are encountering sexism and racism all in the same time. And then, of course, when you add other identifiers of marginalization, disability, trans identity, queer identity, socioeconomic status, like all those things that help to, or not help, but those things that further murky the water for them. So that also I find that when you start to add more and more of those layers, it becomes less likely that people will believe you in your story when it comes to domestic violence, or they'll try to have you assume some of the responsibility as if that's something that you asked for or wanted.
To your point, I heard you said it was learned or groomed, but then like I started to think about people who have like mental health issues, who are born with schizophrenia, who have mania, bipolar, and depression, and a lot of times when I hear about people who are victims of interpersonal violence, a lot of the onshores claim to be a victim of a mental health issue. So I wonder, when I just thought about like, can some people be born with certain things that have predisposed them, that put them at risk to be more violent within relationships with other people because of what they got going on?
Well, that is actually a study that's called epigenetics, and that is actually how they explain the trauma that we take on as Black people by virtue of our ancestors. So like the reason, right? And so like it's not surprising that like a lot of Black people don't know how to swim, and a lot of Black people don't want to get near water. Well, when you look at the transatlantic slave trade and how that trauma has impacted all of our ancestors who was literally smushed at the bottom of the seat, some drowned, some died before they even got to the ship. That then was internalized through our DNA and passed down in that sequence. So I wouldn't be surprised.
It can be genetic.
It can be, but we have a quick commercial break, y'all. It's been a great conversation so far, but we have so much more to talk about. I hope y'all ready. So we'll be right back. All right, y'all, welcome back. I will also say that even though we were talking somewhat about intimate partner violence in the context of hetero couples, that definitely takes place also largely within the LGBTQ community. So please like pay attention to the signs. And also at the end of this episode, we'll have information where you can call if you feel like you are experiencing intimate partner violence or you know someone who is, that you can get more information about. But with that being said, we are now going to kick it over to the main topic of the show, the main segment, What's the Juice? Quentin Coleman, what you got for us, girl?
So what is the juice? So let's, we like to talk about this topic, and it's one of my personal favorites because I like to get some insight from all of my friends here. So relationships. So to my fellow guests.
Well, not fellow guests, because you're not a guest.
You're not a guest.
Oh, I'm not a guest. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're off probation.
Oh, I'm off probation now?
Auditions are still coming.
Right. The way you acted now.
So what's the dating climate for you guys? So, and what has been your experience as of late?
Is this Stormy with a chance of meatballs?
Meaty balls.
Meaty balls.
It started with no balls. I would really like some meatballs. They are not available to me at the moment. Okay. Kind of upset about that. Well, let me retract. They are available. I just don't want those.
I don't want those type of meatballs.
And I'll start because my dear friend over here is very much engaged. Ooh.
It's the subtle flex for her.
You see how Allie, just do that.
Wow, commitment. I love that.
Yes, and that ring.
All that commitment right here on this hand. All that commitment. Ain't it beautiful? Zoom in to the commitment.
Baby said I stay free. I didn't know.
And I can't even find somebody to stay committed to take me to dinner.
I'm with you. I hear you. I see you.
Baby, I'm committed like a red wagon. Go ahead.
His wagon's black, actually. His over there, his wagon's black. It's not red. It's black.
My dating experience, I feel like I'm just like on like a nice little roller coaster that I didn't plan to go on. But I think I've changed a lot in the past, probably like 2 to 3 years. I've experienced a lot of turbulence, life turbulence. And I just feel like I've changed a lot. So what I'm looking for in a partner is very different. My mindset about partnership is very different from a lot of people. And so I have to be very meticulous about who I engage with on that level. Now we just fucking and that's different. Like my standards are very low when it comes to that. But we talk about life partnership.
Your standards are low when it comes to fucking?
No, my standards are a lot lower when it comes to who I'm going to engage with in LA. But if you're going to get like a personal part of me, then, So if you're a fuckboy, I would consider it. If I need to be blunt about it. But go ahead.
I like to say that there's levels to it, because when I was in the streets, not no more, but when I was, there were people that I knew that our relationship was strictly sex and that's what it's going to be. So like, the criteria you had to meet for that was a little different than when it came to somebody that I really wanted to build or nurture emotional connection with. So like, I think it's really levels and layers to it.
Yeah, like that. That's what I feel like. So here in Dallas, the dating scene is very different. A lot of my friends are part of the LGBTQ community. So when I'm out with my friends, I usually don't find prospects. I'm just there for a good time. And then I work a lot, so I don't always have time to like engage with people.
We need to hang out because I like straight men and you like straight men too.
Let's do that. That's not a problem. Not a problem. So to wrap it up, I will say I'm spending a lot of time focusing on myself. And I'm at the point where if somebody wants to get to know me better or engage with me more, I'm open to it. But I'm not necessarily seeking out a relationship the way that I think I previously had.
Can I ask because you talk about how like your criteria for having a sexual relationship is different than if you want something more serious with someone, right? So like, what is the criteria for somebody who just wants to be a fuck buddy or friends with benefits? What does that look like for you all? Because I know a lot of actual women and a lot more Black women when they're having sex, they unfortunately do not reach climax, right? They don't come, they don't nut. And so, go ahead.
Heterosexual black women. That's for the straights, baby.
Sis said we are not still.
Why you gotta put my good sister on the island by herself?
First of all, you put me on no island. 'Cause I get mine. Okay, period.
I get
I hate that for them, but I get mine.
But you gonna get yours regardless.
Big period. Like, no.
But there's like 75% of heterosexual women don't orgasm.
Exactly. I read that the other day, 75%. And like, what is that?
They have never experienced it.
Yeah. But you know what? I think
If it didn't squirt, it didn't work. That's what my daddy say.
That's a t-shirt, y'all.
That's a t-shirt. BlaQberry View t-shirts coming out that say, if it don't squirt, it didn't work.
when it comes to a sexual interaction, I think for me at this point, I'm very much a woman of the 2021. So like, if you just want to have sex and we just say that, just say that,
Be honest.
and be honest about it. But I've encountered a lot of men, specifically black men, who can't handle a woman, specifically a black woman, saying, if we're just going to have a sexual relationship, then that's fine and that's what it's going to be. They are very taken aback by that autonomy, because the idea that we can be sexually liberated and be in ownership of our body and say when and where and how and be very much like them, like in a masculine way, it's very off-putting to them. And so then in turn, we become all these different names or all these different things because I'm doing the same thing that you're doing.
But you would think
about
that go ahead.
I think about it being for black cis heterosexual men, they look at black cis heterosexual women who come and don't have a problem saying like, if we just fucking, that's just what we doing and that's okay. They look at it like, okay, well, if you telling me this, then you might be telling this other person this. You might be telling this other person this. And now, even though you are very single and free to do whatever you want to do, they consider the fact that you might be having sex with X, Y, and Z, or this person, that person, and it's problematic, even though they're doing the same.
It goes back to the double standard that black cis het men can do things that black cis het women can do. They were praised for, little boys were praised for going out and having condoms and they while us growing up, talking to the girls. But let a young girl talking about, I'm on birth control. You on birth control in 8th grade? Oh my God. It's a whole issue.
I mean, Little Boosie brought in a woman to have sex with his 12-year-old son.
Well, we're not
gonna bring up Lil Boosie. Cause Lil Boosie is really Lil DL, but I rest my case.
But it goes back to what we talked about in the previous segment, that ownership piece of, all right, well, I feel like as a black man, I'm at the top of this hierarchy. It's the hierarchical mindset and the patriarchy and the privilege that black men are afforded within our community, not only given to them or granted to them by parentage, but also emphasized throughout the community, to where it's like, okay, well, I can go off and have these mentalities of grandeur, but no one else can because this is my piece of the power.
Well, I also feel like when it comes to in the queer community, I think it's unique in this fact that since we are dating same gender loving individuals or queer individuals, I think there's also a lot of the isms of heteronormative relationships that find their way into queer relationships. And that also taints the dating climate a bit, because I feel like for queer people, the dating climate is oftentimes imitated off of the dating climate that exists for heterosexual cisgender people. And I say that because we don't have, and actually Zaina made this point when we were talking like a long time ago in relation to just like, they have a blueprint as opposed to like, we don't. So we are literally building the ship as we're sailing it at the same time. And so when we think about it, when we get into these situationships or relationships, whatever your preference is, it really comes down to like, how do we kind of deconstruct those heteronormative practices while also trying to establish more healthy and progressive practices within our own relationships? Because the dating pool definitely has some pee in it, and they need to drain the whole pool and refill it all over again. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because Harold discussed, he brought up something just now about the concept of utilizing heteronormative relationships as a blueprint in same gender loving relationships. And when we talked about, we had a BlaQberry View retreat, y'all. It was magical. I hate retreats, but Adrian made it great. It was sticky notes and everything. We talked about monogamy.
Yes.
And I think that oftentimes monogamy is seen as an artifact of heteronormative relationships. However, especially for Adrian and I, we believe in monogamy.
So does Harold.
Damn! But I think that there are some artifacts, and this may be an unpopular opinion, but I also don't give a fuck. There are some artifacts of heteronormative relationships that I think work in same gender loving relationships. It just depends on what your preference is.
And I was gonna say, because you made a comment, you said about the blueprint. Well, what would the blueprint for a relationship be? Because everyone is different. Everyone has different expectations, wants, desires. Like as you said, some of you all are monogamous. Some people believe in polyamory, right? So like what is the definition of that blueprint for a relationship?
So she raised her hand when Chris said polyamory. So I would love to hear your experience, your thoughts.
I am ethically non-monogamous. I'm currently engaged. I am practicing non-monogamy. I'm practicing monogamy, excuse me. My fiance is monogamous, so we're in a mono-poly relationship. So
Word.
interesting.
That is cool.
That's a term. We can talk about that another day, though. But when we do discuss like creating those blueprints or what is the blueprint for a relationship, I would say we should create the norm that there is no blueprint and you have to engage in conversations with that person that you're trying to engage with to create your own blueprint. Because
But the blueprint is that there is no blueprint.
Okay, let's acknowledge this, right?
That's shooting for me. I'm sorry. That's shooting.
There's also a level, tell me if I'm wrong, there's a level of compromise I think you both have to have to an extent.
Or collaboration.
Collaboration, compromise. And I say this because when you hear your word choices were repeated, you said, I'm practicing monogamy. And so somebody out there in the interwebs may be like, well, why can't she practice polyamory? Or they practice polyamory. I'm not sure of the pronoun. But why can't your partner practice polyamory? So I think I would assume there's a level of like y'all meet in the middle.
It's a compromise of meeting in the middle.
I love
So
that.
when people think about monogamous relationships, there are some components that are like, if you're monogamous and you still have a dating app or if you actively swiping on something, then that's cheating. So then you have to slow down and think about what in your relationship constitutes cheating. What are the dynamics of your relationship?
Oh, I got to learn that.
That's problematic.
I'll fight you, but you
But
have
that's
to
the-
know your phone.
The blueprint is that there is no blueprint.
Uppercase B, general blueprint. Lowercase b, whatever your blueprint is with your partner.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That's your own blueprint.
It's individual to each relationship, and I feel like you have the authority to define what that looks like for you. So, to your point, you can have like a mixed match of like how you want your relationship to be. Because I would be like that. I mean, I want monogamy, but then if we want to go out and play together, we can go out and find. But you know, that's how I would like my situation to be.
As Black women, how do you, if you share that with other people, family, friends, loved one, whoever, who would oftentimes look at it from a very linear perspective around your relationship? So if you did not disclose that you're monopoly, then they would probably assume that you're just traditionally monogamous. Mm-hmm. How does that happen? Because I know we love to police Black women. And so when a Black woman says, well, whether cis or queer, or cis or het, het or queer, when she says that they're monogamous or they're sexually liberated and they're open to like whatever, people start to go ahead and start to label them different things. So what does it look like for a monopoly relationship with Black queer women?
It's really funny. So I don't just jump off the back and say, hey, I'm in a monopoly relationship and things like that, depending on my context or whatever. But I like to say it that way. I challenge what people believe relationships should or could potentially look like. Because I don't want you making assumptions or placing your expectations about what a relationship should or could or is supposed to look like on me and mine. So do know that whatever we got going on, obviously we got that.
Yes.
We have it. Now, if you want to dig into what it could potentially look like in other relationships, then I'm definitely there to ask questions and to challenge whatever you believe and the dynamics that you shape in your own personals.
Yeah.
But what we do, it works for us.
I love it. I like that. And again, y'all, she got the ring.
But we have to move forward to talk about something else that I think is very important. So, Q, what is next? that we're going to discuss with these lovely women.
Segueing into women's civil rights. So I have a question. So do you think society has been making progress as it relates to women's rights? Specifically black women.
Regardless of what is being awarded to us or given to us as far as rights, I think we're at the point where we're taking them and we're being very assertive about it. And I love that. I never forget this conversation I had with somebody who was in an upper position in my organization that I work at. And I told them that I like Megan Thee Stallion. They was like, well, I mean, and this is a black man. And he was like, really? You know, I guess it was really taken aback by that. And I was like, yeah, I mean, she really speaks to me. Like, I feel like that, like, she ministers to me. He was taken aback by that. And I was like, dead ass serious. And he's having an period. Like, I feel seen. And he was like, well, how? Like, why? And I was like, she makes me feel sexually liberated. She makes me feel like I can take ownership over my body and that I can demand what I want and be unapologetic about it. And also that other people's feelings ain't got nothing to do with me. Now, was I taught all of those things when I was a child? Yes, I was. Did I listen? No, because I didn't see those things reflected in society. And I think that now I'm seeing them reflected as I'm coming through my late 20s in music and art and people's expression. I feel more empowered by that. So now I'm way more unapologetic about what I deserve. Now, when it comes to policies and laws and all those different things like that, you still have to stay alive, is what my mama say. Find a way to make it home at the end of the night. And I still do that. At the same time, of what envelopes can I push the culture forward, and how can I help another black woman, regardless of who she loves and who she is and how she identifies, how can I push her forward? Because I'm of the mindset that if she can go forward, I can. Like, if she is able to get through, then there's a possibility for me. And if it's not me, then maybe it's my children, maybe it's my nephews, maybe it's my nephews who may turn into other people. Like, what does that look like? And I think I want all those possibilities to be available to my people. That's the mindset I take.
I like that. And building on that, I think that society as a whole is fucked and it's burning itself up, but that's separate.
Going to hell in a handbag.
Absolutely. Hello, thank you. But when it comes to black women and pursuing liberation and us being able to stand up for who we are, it's something that we are taking on our own. It's like society is going to continue to basically fuck over us in whatever way that they can. If life is going to fuck you, then you might as well get your nuts. So I think that that's the platform or the strategy that a lot of black women are taking now, because we keep continuously getting passed over for different opportunities, continuously ignored for things that we do. And at the end of the day, we know that life is an experience. And if we only have this experience that we can experience, then we've been trying to push towards doing whatever we want. That's why you can get Meg Thee Stallion, who can stand up on stage and twerk and also take her graduation pictures and show that I'm able to be multifaceted.
And one other thing I wanted to add, I before we started shooting, I was telling Jamisha, I was like, I came over here listening to Betty Davis. I saw this documentary and I was listening to Betty Davis, and I'm very much a history buff. Like, I love history, especially Black history. Like, I just get lost in it because I love people's stories. And so I have found myself listening to Betty Davis and listening to Bessie Smith and like Billie Holiday and all these like powerful Black women who were just like not taking no for an answer during a time where that was not heard of, during a time where they were ostracized, and like among being Black women during the time of Jim Crow. Like, if they are able to succeed in their artistry during that time, I think that I can do it in my everyday life. And those things really empower me. And the words that they say and the aggressions and the ownership, like, that makes me feel so empowered to know that my family and friends and my ancestors listened to that music, and I know it for a fact, and that's who created me.
It was something that you had said that struck me earlier.
I feel a lot of things.
No. It was about the questions about rights.
Yeah.
And you said something that are given, something that's given. And from my perspective, I feel like rights should not have to be given to people. They should be taken. I'm taking what's rightfully mine, what I am worthy of, what I am accepting. Who are you to tell me what I can get or what I can take?
In America.
And I feel like based off of American society, the patriarchy, and white people, yes, I said it, white people, we have been socialized to think that rights are something that should be given. They're their reward
And given in peace.
and given in pieces. And given in pieces.
Earned this much.
But it's like, no, I have the right to be who the fuck I want to be.
You know, there's been like a lot of conversation and controversy around, you know, Black cis women and Black trans women, and the fact that there seems to be a divide between those two communities. Like, some cis Black women are like, no, you are not real women because, you know, I have periods, or I am able to give birth, or whatever dumb reasoning I won't say dumb reasoning, whatever reasoning they have, right? And not recognizing that Black trans women are in fact women. And so I would love for you all to kind of talk about that, and also talk about what are your thoughts on how we can bridge that gap and those two communities can start supporting one another. Of course, we all need to support Black trans women, but specifically Black cis women.
So speaking as a cis Black woman who studies human sexuality, I think it boils down to the misconceptions that we have around gender as a whole, especially when we think about, oh, well, you're not a real woman. We need to think about what constitutes a real woman and according to who and what standards. Because in America, like Western civilization decided, whoever made this grand decision, that we were
A white man. Behind every ism is a white man.
So some white man made the decision that we were going to use anatomy, genitalia, chromosomal makeup, and things like that to determine what gender identity is. When in reality, gender identity and the biological makeup, sex, is very, very different. And they have different countries, different places use other characteristics to determine what gender is. So there are people in like Indonesia, I believe they're called the travesti, look them up. They use sexual behavior to determine what gender identity is. So there are men, women, and non-men based on what you do sexually, opposed to whatever your anatomical makeup and stuff is.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, as cis women, we need to sit back and say, well, what do we mean by a real woman? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And as a nation, we need to check ourselves on thinking that we are the foremost authority.
Hello.
On thinking that we know what everything is for everyone. Who told you, baby?
A white man.
A white man. I also think we struggle as women to figure out what constitutes a woman, is because I think for so long in society, men have towered over women, and we have had to, very similar to minoritized identities, we've had to hold on to whatever is left in order to empower ourselves, which is our genitalia, which is, you know, our breasts and our reproductive systems and all those other things. Like, those are the things that's all you have to hold on to. And it looks different for every woman. Ooh. It looks different for every woman. I'm smart, right? It looks.
What are you saying is making so much sense to me right now, because like I'm just even thinking about like growing up and hearing my mama talk, little girl should do this. So like I think like as being a woman and being black woman, you always had to hold on to what you could. You weren't a man and you were Black, right? Yeah. So you had to hold on to your reproductive organs. You had to get by being hyper feminine.
That's your power.
And that was the power, right? Was your femininity. So anything that deviates from that is viewed as less than, takes away from that Western view of what you were socialized to think a woman was. Yeah. So anything out, exactly. So anything outside of that archetypal norm is not going to be viewed as womanly. It's not going to be viewed as beautiful, because, as you said, we had to keep what we could, because we weren't given that much.
And then, like you said, if you add the Black woman identity, that it just, you know, it exasperates what you're already talking about. So I think for me and my journey of exploring different people's identity and how they like to express themselves or how they want to live, I was raised in the church. My daddy is a preacher. And I wasn't raised in a typical Christian household or environment or community. I was taught to love, which it should be just like simple, but that's just what I was taught. And so as I grew up and I experienced different people, I always leaned on the fact that if I don't understand something, all I can do is love that person. I think that's the least I can give them. And as I learned more about the trans experience, I don't know what it's like to not feel at home in my own body. And like when I think about that, I'm always taken aback, because that's just not my experience. But when I think about it could be my experience, I'm completely overtaken with emotion and just thoughts, because what does that mean? How do you go on from that point after that realization? And I think for me, all I know is to love and to show care. And through that love, it looks like advocating. It looks like when people are saying things that are negative, to speak up about it. And I think it means a lot more coming from me as a cis Black woman, to be able to advocate for trans women in that respect. And I just think that's important. And I think that they are doing a lot to help me in my cishet experience. And I mean, it's work. It's just work, and we all have a part to play in it. And if they can help me and I can help them, I think we all win in that.
People have to reconcile with dissonance, cognitive dissonance, which is hard because cognitive dissonance is just saying I believe in A, and you get a presented with information and things that say, well, there's also B, or A may not be as true as you make it, or A may not be true at all. And people have to reconcile with that feeling like, damn, in some ways I've been wrong, right? I've been wrong entirely, or I've been wrong partially, and now I have to reorient myself to a new understanding and a new perspective. And that's hard for people because in our society, we literally get comfortable operating in this box, right? And I love Erykah Badu always says it in her song On and On, a man that knows something knows that he knows nothing at all. And I think if more people operated from that lens, it would be easier for us to have more intentional conversation. But cognitive dissonance is a bitch. Cognitive dissonance around racism, sexism, ableism, socioeconomic status, education, privilege, rights, class, all the dissonance around that, because we've all been socialized to believe to an extent that this is how it should be, this is how it's always going to be. And when you're presented with information that counters that those counter narratives, people really struggle with. Some people like us, and I think we're very, very intelligent and well-rounded. So we're able to kind of get presented new information and be like, okay, fair. I never thought about that, and we move on. But a majority of our world has lived in the echo chamber where they have not been challenged. And when they get challenged now at the age of 21 or 41 or 81, baby, it blows their mind and they don't know how to compute, so they fold like a lawn chair. So I think that's also reasons why we just need to be intentional about getting into therapy more often.
Therapy is key, y'all. Therapy is key. Also, to our Black trans women, we love you. We see you. You are valuable. Yes. So we are going to take a brief commercial break, and we're going to come right back with some tips and dip by Dr. Zach Shirley. See y'all in a minute. Hey y'all, welcome back to the BlaQberry View Season 2, Episode 1. So, y'all know how we do. We gotta leave you with a little something, so I'm gonna pass it to my boo. That rhymes, I know. Dr. Zach Shirley. Go ahead, doctor.
Thank you, boo. So, we've had an amazing conversation with our phenomenal guests. And the tip and dip that I wanna leave y'all with today as we unpack that and dissect this when we talk about how we can further support Black women. One of my favorite quotes, y'all know I'm a quote person, that ain't changed from season 1, it's still the same as season 2. Ask a Black woman who she's voting for and act accordingly. So when I say that, I relate that to acting accordingly, meaning listen to and honor the opinion and the perspectives of Black women. Take in the information that they are providing us and giving us. I told a story a couple of weeks ago. I was featured on Walk with TFB, another phenomenal podcast. Shout out to Walk with TFB, cisgender heterosexual Black man who also works in student affairs. He asked me about my life journey, and one of the things we talked about was my college journey. And had I not listened to my mother, a Black woman, I wouldn't be Dr. Z that you see in front of me today. There's knowledge and richness that Black women have that exceeds leaps and bounds of time. And the thing that we have to do is just sit and listen. And so when we talk about how we can further support Black women, my perspective on that is not only just hear but listen to Black women, but I want to give other individuals of the BlaQberry View and our guests. I want to start with our guests. How we can further support Black women.
Actually, can I do it too? Can we end with our guests on that? Because I would love to them to be.
You're right, Adrian. They can close us out.
Yes, yeah.
Nice little bow on the package.
And you know what? And once can we use I statements?
Yes. Okay, we can use
How can I?
How can I further support Black women? So let's start with Q.
Quentin Coleman. I think that, like kind of what you said, Zach, I think we really need to not only listen but comprehend what women, what women tell us, what they're, what's needed in the community. I think, because I'm not a woman, so I don't know, I don't have those experiences, the same experiences like women, especially like our Black women do. So listen and comprehend.
Okay. Adrian?
I would say that I think, because I don't know, because I'm not a Black woman, and you all haven't told us yet, right? So I think how I can support Black women is by helping to, working with them to create space for Black women, right? For their voices to be heard at the table, to help make sure that they not only have a seat at the table, but they're eating at the table as well, because there's a difference. Somebody just sitting at the table is just there as a token. But when somebody's eating at the table, then they are, talking about their needs, and they're being heard, and they're being listened to, and they're being being comprehended and things of that nature. So I would say that.
Okay, so not just inclusion, but belonging as well. Okay, all right, Chris?
I feel like I can support Black women more by being more present for Black women. I think that because I work in the field of public health, and I am all about queer health and queer lives matter, a lot of my focus, work, and my mental stability goes to gay men's rights or rights of trans-identified people. And I typically leave cis women out of the conversation. So for me, I feel like I can be in more support of specifically Black cisgender women by making myself more present for that community, because they have always been present for me.
Harold?
As for me, I believe that I can be more supportive of Black women. And when I say Black women, that's inclusive of those trans. By simply asking myself the questions on my shirt, what would Black women do? To Zach's point, Black women literally are the answer. And I literally use that mantra, and I say it to myself every day, whether it's, if it's some shit that go on in the office, what would Black women do? My mind goes, Black women mind their business. Very good. I'm gonna mind my business. What would Black women do? They would speak up and advocate for that person. So I'm gonna speak up and advocate for that person. And so I haven't been steered wrong. I kid you not. I can't explain it outside the fact that Black women, to your point, leaps and bounds of wisdom that has surpassed the ages. And so we need to ask, what will Black women do? They showed out twice in 2 presidential elections, despite various challenges and disparities, and voted for the interests of everybody, those close and far away from them. So yeah, what will Black women do?
Well, I know that our guests are gonna just blow our minds with what they have. I believe y'all are, because listen, Black women are the answer. Like Harold said, Black women are the answer. So whoever wants to go first, the floor is yours.
I can go ahead. So I can kind of echo a lot of things that y'all said. I appreciate highlighting that we need to listen. Individuals need to comprehend and understand. I also need you to get up and get out of the way. So sometimes...
Oh, I like that.
Well, I'm leaving.
Let me go.
Black women need you to do exactly that. Like, you have a seat at the table. Appreciate if you make a space for us to be able to eat at the same time. However, if there is one Black woman that's sitting at the table eating, maybe 1 or 2 of the cishet white men that are sitting at the table can get up and get out of the way. That way we can allow room and space for more Black women's voices to be heard at the table. Yes. Because just having one Black woman in a space does not encompass our entire experience. Even when you look at Zaina and I am a cis, non-monogamous Black lesbian. Zaina is a cis-het Black woman. And we have different experiences in life. So the things that we bring to the table will be extremely different. Our lenses that we bring are extremely different. So just having me at the table doesn't necessarily speak for Zana's experience. So sometimes we need people to get up and get out of the way and advocate for us to create more room for us to be able to step into those spaces and truly create an equitable society.
That's another Instagram quote.
And if you didn't understand this, she's saying, "Move, bitch.
Get out the way. Get out the way, bitch. Get out
the way.
Oh, cute. Okay. All right.
The thing that I think about most is people's inability, specifically black men's inability to be uncomfortable, to step in the gap. I think the reason why black women are now being lifted up the way that we are is because people realize how much trauma we have experienced, and through that trauma has come wisdom. And so I appreciate the thought of like listen to black women and uphold them and follow their directions and all those different things like that. Notice I say they because I know I'm a black woman, but I'm also looking at the black women that came before me and the people who are older than me and who have more experiences than me. But at the same time, that's heavy. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot to uphold, and it's a lot of responsibility that I think that we have taken on because nobody else will do it. And I think the best thing that would help me as well as my peers is people to be uncomfortable, to speak up more. When you see some crazy stuff going down, instead of just walking away or checking on me aftermath, why didn't you say something then? Like, why didn't you speak up when your dad said this or when somebody else said that? You just let it pass, but then you came and checked in on me. That's not helpful. Like, that's a kind of like an afterthought. So people need to get more comfortable with being uncomfortable, with being a true ally in action and not just in word. And with that listening and paying attention, putting that into actionable steps. And even if you don't always know what to do, I truly believe that if you have 2 peas of a brain, I think you'll figure it out.
I want to be 2 peas.
2 peas. Because out of the faith of the seed of the size of a mustard seed.
Come on.
Let's go.
You better be.
And then I will say one other thing. I think for me personally, I would like to take this time to highlight my friends, specifically those within the LGBTQ community. They have taught me so much and have empowered me to stand in my identity, to stand in my power and my privilege, and also recognize the ways that I don't have privilege and figure out what does that look like. And that team dynamic has been really transformative for me. A lot of my friends are Black gay male men, and thinking about how they fight for their rights and how I can pull into that, and then how they talk about, well, what would help you? I think those relationships have been like transformative for me. And I wish that everybody had that diverse of a friend group and people who are close to them to be able to know about different life experiences. Oftentimes you go into the workplace and people talk about like, it's not my responsibility to teach you about my experience. And it's not, but it is your responsibility to find people around you to love on and to learn about their experience and figure out how you can push every narrative forward as far as dismantling, racism and all the other isms. I think that's a part of the work as well. Like, who are your friends? And that tells you who you are. If all your friends look like you and have the same identity as you and have the same lifestyle as you, like, what are you learning? Like, what are you doing?
Nothing.
That's a place of like pure comfortability. And so I'm always challenged when I'm out with my friends, even the ones who are Black cis women, because their experiences are completely different from mine. And I listen to that. You listen to Black women includes Black women. Listening to one another.
Y'all have dropped the mics plenty of times during this episode.
What's the tip of the season?
Yes. Mic drop.
Now squeeze that juice, motherfucker.
Okay, yeah. So, but yes, and we also we want to say thank you to our guests, y'all. Yes, thank you to our guests. Please make sure you follow them on Instagram. Their Instagrams will be at the bottom of the screen. Make sure y'all follow them right here. Yes, please follow also the BlaQberry View. Like, share. We appreciate y'all. Also, don't forget, subscribe to I Elevate Plus TV. Girl, it is only $4.99, I think, or $4.59. One or two. Either way, it's less than what you pay for OnlyFans. All right, and you can afford it.
And you can get on Apple TV and Roku TV.
And Netflix and Hulu, right? But we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. This has been episode 1 of season 2. We will be back on episode 2 talking about sex, safety, and pleasure.
And you know you want to listen.
Yes, you do.
And
see y'all
why.
next time. Deuce.
Thank